Today, we have Mike from MC who is going to chat a little bit about what their program does and how we can utilize it in Vermont. I know that there was a lot of interest in this, and um, yeah, Mike, you can take it away.
Great. Thank you so much, Courtney. Can you guys see my screen? I shared a PowerPoint slide here. Is that coming through on your end?
I see it.
Okay, wonderful. Okay, so hello all. My name is Mike Main. I'm the founder and CEO of MC. We are a mobile first tracking and scheduling platform for EMS education specifically. What we have is an app that we've built from the ground up, built it. Well, the timeline is on the next slide, but we've been around for about 5 years now. And it's a competitive product to some other companies you may have heard of, Platinum or FizzDap. I'm not sure if any of you have used their products in the past, but what we have is a similar. Our key differentiator is that it's mobile first. Your students likely were either born with a smartphone in their hand or have one anyway. So the idea is that they shouldn't have to learn and use a tracking system on the web that is only available under certain circumstances. Our mobile platform works whether they have an internet connection or not. Students just enter what they did into our platform, and we produce reports that prove that they are competent in what you're trying to train them on. So out of the gate, when you create a new cohort in our system and assign students to that cohort, they're given at the paramedic level the 2023 COA SMCs, the minimum competencies for paramedic. We have at the AEMT level the proposed SMCs from COA and NSEMSO, and then kind of a cool little SMC style template that we got from the state of Virginia that tracks EMT competencies in a similar way as well. But those base requirement sets in our platform are totally modifiable by you. You can customize what you want your students to be doing pretty thoroughly in MC. So if you can see the slide that's there, I think it gives a good overview of what we have. Pricing is really straightforward for our product. I won't really talk too much about that outside of the pricing at the bottom left-hand corner of the screen right now. It's $25 per EMT student, $50 per paramedic, or excuse me, AEMT student, $100 per paramedic student. And that is the only cost associated with using MC. We don't charge a program fee. We don't charge a fee for your instructors or preceptors. It's a per student fee that can either be paid by your students directly or by you in bulk for your students if you're passing on the cost into their student fees or something like that. Really brief history. Is it still, you can still see the screen, right? Okay, really brief history. So you're aware of our progress and the fact that the platform is very much still under development. We're building and tweaking and customizing and growing, adding more features as time goes on. Back in 2019, when we launched, we just had skills and evaluation tracking. In 2020, we launched what is still my favorite feature in our platform, Sim Sessions. It is a feature that lets you collaboratively evaluate one scenario that's happening in your lab with multiple people observing the scenario on their own devices and recording what happens, and then multiple participants being graded on what they're doing and getting credit for the skills that they perform. 2021, we launched scheduling that allows you to schedule out your clinical and field times for your students and have them optionally choose shifts within our system, and then subsequently document the patients and skills that they do on those shifts. But the scheduling portion lets you create your schedule where you can send students and see where they're at. It allows them to clock into their shifts. We time and date stamp when they clocked in and location stamp, excuse me, so you know they were where they said they were when they clocked in, and then track their clock out time as well when they're done with the shift. And then we produce a report that shows you their attendance information, the number of hours they were scheduled for versus the number of hours that they actually attended between their clock in and clock out on a given shift. In 2022, COA threw a wrench in everything and changed how they wanted to start tracking skills at the paramedic level towards a more competency-based model. And we overhauled our entire requirement system to focus on this new competency-based model. We put in place a patient evaluation rubric that I'm really proud of. It does a really good job of letting students focus on what they did and having their evaluators, whether that's an instructor in the lab or a preceptor in the field, just rate their performance on their patient encounters. And then we decide how those patient encounters count against your requirements based on how they're evaluated on those patient contacts. I think it's a super simple grading scale. It's just 3 categories that we're looking for the preceptor to score a student on. They're scored on their assessment of the patient encounter, their treatment of the patient, and their overall management of the patient encounter. I'll get more into that later, but the key point there is that it's a pretty simple, straightforward rating scale. There's not a lot of subjectivity in there, so you're not having preceptor iterator reliability problems. It's just asking, did the student need help on these things or not? And then we file things away appropriately based on whether they needed help or not. We launched a bunch of new stuff last year. It was kind of a smattering of features all over the platform. One of the cool ones is Foam Finder. We worked with Limmer Education. They're a content test quizzing student prep provider out of Maine. And they have a tool called Foam Finder that aggregates open access medical information from around the internet. And so what we do is if a student goes out into the field and sees a cardiac patient, they return to their dashboard in EMCE and they see open access medical information relating to cardiac. So they'll see podcasts, blog posts, medical journals, things like that, that are all contextually related to what they've just seen in the field, and they can kind of reinforce what they've done out in the field in our app. We did fully launch a help center too, so there's comprehensive help documentation to help not only students but instructors and preceptors use our system as well. That's brand new as of last year. We launched our EPCR as well. It's a more thorough patient care documentation form that allows students to get practice with charting. It uses all NEMSIS data points too. So if your students really need practice charting, it gets them prepared for whatever system you're using. I'm not sure if the whole state uses one PCR vendor or what, but it's the same data points. So they'll get kind of, our interface is obviously different than what you're using, but it'll get them used to the kind of data points that they need to capture on any given patient. And then expanded the paramedic SMC style data sets to EMT and AEMT just last year as well. Earlier this year, we launched AI scenario generation within sim sessions. So your students can be practicing with each other in the lab. And I remember in EMT school, this was the main barrier to me. I wanted to practice patient care, but I couldn't come up with a scenario. I didn't have enough knowledge to actually get a lifelike scenario in place to practice. So we built AI scenario generation. So the student gives it a complaint or many complaints for a patient encounter and a patient age, and we will generate a text scenario that lets them, it's basically just the prompting for the scenario, scene setup, moulage instructions, vitals, dispatch information, stuff like that to get them kicked off into a scenario, and it'll do that for any complaint that you give it. So it should be pretty evergreen. We do obviously have a disclaimer in there as well, because it's not vetted by any human. It's just robots. So I really see that being useful with student practice with each other, not necessarily in your final testing scenarios or anything. I'm sure you guys have patient care scenarios that you use and like, and that's great, but it just is a tool for students to use so they have a little bit of extra practice. And then as we've been growing over the last year, we've had to kind of step aside from building new features to focus on our platform scaling. From this time, we're now in June. Gosh, I was going to say from May 2023 to May 2024, we've grown 3x. So there's been, I wouldn't say growing pains necessarily, but growing realities that we need to adjust to. So we've been spending some time shoring up some of our backend code and making sure that we can support all of the new programs that we've been getting. So that's made our planned roadmap features take a little bit of a back seat, but what the future looks like is incorporating more educational content. I mentioned I mentioned Foam Finder, where the student sees a specific patient presentation in the field and comes back and gets open access medical information. We also want to prompt them with quizzes and study material, flashcards, things like that. Really just bake in more educational content throughout the documentation process so that you're not just entering what you did, but also learning from that as well, ideally. We're working on a preceptor training course as well. It's a accreditation requirement at the paramedic level that you train your preceptors in some way. I'm not sure if the state of Vermont has something similar as well, but at the paramedic level, COA wants to see that you're training your preceptors in not only your program procedures, but also just a general preceptor training. How do you work with students? What are best practices in terms of all of the different challenges that preceptors face in the field? So we're working on a course there that we're going to make available for free to preceptors. So there's a preceptor version of the app that can be downloaded from the App Store. Well, it's the same version of the app, but if you log in as a preceptor, you'll get an opportunity to take this free course, and then we'll allow programs to add their own custom content to that course for a fee, and then you can prove that you've been training your preceptors appropriately as well. We got a note from Google, whose generative AI we use to build our scenarios, that they're going to start charging us more for that. So we're going to build a feature around that and offer that as an optional upgrade as well. So you can save those scenarios and rate those scenarios and share them with other programs, things like that. That'll come at some point as well. And then there's a lot of documentation that's necessary for paramedic program accreditation. And so we're going to build kind of a way for people to use our platform to store a lot of that information that's going to need to generate accreditation reports. We obviously have the skills and competency tracking report that comes out of our system, but we want to go beyond that. Your surveys after the program is over, things like that, that'll be built into the program as well. So the last couple minutes of stuff is on the slide before you and beyond. I don't want to sell things that we don't have. That is stuff that is not in the platform yet. So that's just a taste of what's to come. And then at the very top of the screen, I already mentioned that we've grown 3x since last year. But just to give you an idea of the scope of our program, how many programs across the country are using EMCE, we've now had 3 million, just shy of 3 million skills entered into the platform, shy of 400,000 patients and 100,000 shifts. And growing exponentially over the last year, and I'm going to cross my fingers that continues. But just a note that we are indeed on that trajectory to keep growing and expanding the platform as time goes on. And then if you want to either take a screenshot of this, I'm not going to linger on this slide, but I want to underscore how easy it is to get a hold of me. This QR code will take you to our form on the website where you can fill out a form and get in touch with me. I'm pretty sure that's how Courtney got a hold of me initially. And then my phone number is there, as well as my email address. I take great pride in my availability in being able to help our customers. My promise to any of our customers is that I'll get back to you within 24 business hours. That is, I say business hours. Like if you get me right late on a Friday afternoon, you may not hear from me until Monday morning. But I am very responsive, and that is a point of pride here. So if you're looking for customer support, I think you'll get that here. So that's just a general overview. Courtney, will you remind me how much time I've got to work with here?
Yeah, so we have typically an hour and a half, but we usually use an hour of that for these meetings.
Okay, so my plan now is to just jump into our platform. I'm going to share that screen. I think I need to change the sharing one moment here. And I just want to show you how easy it is to set up your organization in EMCE. I'm going to create a demonstration program, and we did actually for someone enter a bunch of custom skill sheets that the state of Vermont has. So we have some. If you set up a school and you say your location is in Vermont, you get different versions of skill sheets than you would if you're somewhere else. So I'm going to create a brand new program. So you can see what that creation process looks like, as well as just some of the features that we've discussed at a high level. You'll be able to see those a little more specifically now. So, okay, how do I share that? Any questions before I start jumping right into the platform? Anything come up for anybody that is like, wait, what? I don't understand that. Okay, crickets, good. All right, I'm gonna do this. Do you see a screen that just has an EMCE logo with sign up, sign in? Is that what you're seeing right now?
Yes. Yep.
Okay. Okay, like I mentioned, we are a mobile first platform, so you can get the EMCE app on Android, iOS. We have a native Mac OS app. If you're using Apple products, you can use it natively on your Mac. But if you are on Windows or you just want to use a web browser, you can also access EMCE from the web on Google Chrome, Microsoft Edge. I would highly recommend one of those two browsers, but you really can't access it from any browser. What the screen I'm sharing is a Google Chrome window with our app already here. I prefer dark mode, so I'm going to be in dark mode, but light mode is just hard on my eyes. I don't really want to do that. We're in dark mode, so I'm just going to go ahead and sign up. So bear with me here. I'm going to be Mike Main, Mike plus Vermont at emce.co. Password. Ooh, I did that wrong. So any user, whether they're an instructor, a preceptor, or a student, they're going to sign up the same way. They're going to download the app or go to emce.app and click sign up, just like I did. This is the exact sign up process that every user, yourselves and your students included, will go through. They give us a name, an email, and a password and click sign up, and that creates their EMCE account. Then they're going to be asked to select a role. So the students will choose student, instructors, instructor, and then search for their organization next. So I'm going to search for Vermont and not find the one I want here. Demo, okay, and I didn't find my organization. If you have an accredited paramedic program from about 5 years ago, your organization will already be in the list, and so you should be able to find it. If not, you can create it. There's no difference. We just preloaded a lot of the accredited paramedic programs a long time ago. So I'm going to create a new organization, and I'm going to call it something that I had already planned on calling it, so I can match this. We're going to be Vermont EMS Training Demo. All right. We're located at 123 Fake Street. I think the only city I can name in Vermont, Montpelier, is that in Vermont?
Yes, it is.
Okay. I think that's all I got. So I'm just gonna say Montpelier. Did I spell that right? VT.
Good.
What's a good postal code?
I don't know what Montpelier's is, but you could just throw in like 05489.
Yeah, you guys on the East Coast got the low numbers, the ones that start with 0. Okay. All right, so this is going to be a little bit strange. I really should have set my device time to Eastern. I'm located in Minnesota, so I don't think this will cause issues. I'm going to say we're in New York. Okay, we're on the East Coast. So that's the entire process for creating an organization. I've now got my Vermont EMS Training Demo organization set up in the system. When I hit save, it creates my administrator profile, actually my director profile at this organization, and then I'm taken to my EMCE dashboard. So just a quick at a glance on the dashboard, all of your navigation is over here. You can view your current schedule or your schedule for where your students are at any given day right on your dashboard. If you're marked as the evaluator on any given skill or patient contact from a student, you'll see that on your evals to-do list for you to approve it before it'll count towards their requirements, notifications. Then you can also actually just select a student here if you don't have any yet to view their progress. Right on your dashboard, you can see student progress in real time, so you're not confused about where they are. So everything in EMCE really revolves around a cohort. So the first thing I'm going to do is create a cohort. And Courtney, did you say it would be best to do AEMT? Do you think that's probably the most universally applicable to this group here?
I would even say EMT. I don't think it really matters. There's good variation here.
Okay, we'll do EMT. That's fine. It's
Great.
that you should be familiar with the AEMT and paramedic skill sets. The EMT one is coming from the state of Virginia, so this will at least show you the idea of it and give you a little bit of idea there. Okay, so you give a cohort a start date and an end date. This is just when students are available to join it and continue to document stuff. So I'm just going to say this is our demo EMT cohort. This is the EPCR that I mentioned. You can turn this off, but it's off by default. And all that means is that when a student goes to document a patient, all that they're capturing is the patient's complaint and age. That's all we need. So if you want them to do a more fully featured charting practice, you're going to want to turn the EPCR on. We still consider our EPCR in beta. There's not a way for you to require specific data points in that PCR. Like I need you to fill out vitals or it won't count. There's not a way to report in a bulk manner on all of the EPCR data points. So you can't say like, show me all the patients where their vital signs were this or something like that. So there's a number of features that we would like to add before we consider the EPCR fully baked. But you can have your students chart, and then you can review all of their charts individually with the EPCR beta. There's just more to come. So we have this little beta tag on there. So I'm going to go ahead and create this EMT cohort, and it's created. A cohort has two types of requirements. You have skill requirements and patient requirements. Again, they're completely customizable, but they're set to that SMC requirement set at the beginning. So if I tap into skills here, I'll see what that looks like. There are no prerequisite requirements for EMT, but if I were to create a paramedic or AEMT requirement set, the prerequisites are going to be your BLS skills that students should already have and should be able to prove that they can do. So we have prerequisite requirements out of the gate for those levels. And then you have formative and summative skill requirements as well. And I think it's pretty straightforward. These are just the skills that your EMT should be practicing. This list that we got from Virginia is quite comprehensive. Maybe you don't have quite as many specific psychomotor skills that you're having your EMTs do, but this one is representative, if not a little bit much, honestly. So on any given requirement, you have a name and skills that satisfy that requirement, and then here you can set a number that you want them to do to practice with their peers, student to student practice in the app, and then the number that you want to see at the instructor level to sign them off as an instructor. And these are their formative skills. And they have a completely different set of summative skills as well that you're missing a bunch of blue tags here because we're looking for these to be performed in the context of a live patient encounter, not on a sim in the lab. So we've got formative skill requirements, summative skill requirements. You can add your own skill requirements and completely customize this list. But I want to also just jump into one of these so you can see the anatomy of a requirement. So I clicked on bag valve mask. Requirement has a name. You can say this requirement is only satisfied whether you're in the lab or if you're in clinical or field. You can say it has to be one of those specific activities in order for this requirement to be satisfied. Out of the gate, none of those are set. So we will count any attempts from any environment unless you specifically say it has to be lab, it has to be clinical, etc. Then you can optionally make a requirement able to be simulated. If you say it's not able to be simulated, that has to be done on a live patient. And then finally, any requirement can be satisfied by one or many skills. This is kind of one of our secret sauces that makes the whole thing work. Students can enter what they did. And for example, we have skill sheets for the National Registry's BVM of an apneic adult patient. We have specific skill sheets for bag valve masking, rescue breathing adults. But does that sound like the title of a Vermont skill sheet, perhaps? I'm not sure where we got these bag valve mask rescue breathing skill sheets, but at any rate, we have several versions of this skill that can be entered. And what we're saying is, regardless of which one the students choose, they're going to get credit for this BVM requirement. So you don't have to like say, okay, enter it exactly this way. They enter what they did, and we'll count it. That's kind of one of the ways we do that. So that's skill requirements in a nutshell. And patient requirements are kind of similar, but instead of being satisfied by the particular performance of a given skill, they're satisfied by entering simulated patients. At the EMT level, there aren't a lot of patient requirements. Yeah, it's actually just 10 total patients that's here, but you can get really specific with this. And so if I were to add a new patient requirement, I can say that this is adult AMS, for example. And then I can say that this is only satisfied by an altered mental status adult patient. And then I can set a requirement number for this and say, you can track very specific combinations of age and complaint here and say, here's what I'm expecting you to see in the field before you graduate. Or I want to simulate with you. You can put your scenarios in here as well and say, like, I know we're gonna do at least one lab day where we're simulating an AMS scenario. So here we go. Does that make sense? I'm gonna not ask for feedback. I'm used to a one-on-one demo where I'm talking back and forth. Sorry about that. Okay, so one really quick note that I'll make on patient requirements and then kind of expand on later is that the way that a student progresses from formative to summative to capstone in patient requirements, again, they're not entering a formative patient contact. This is a summative patient contact. This is a capstone patient contact. They enter the patient, and then based on how the preceptor rates them on their assessment, treatment, and management of that patient contact, it is eligible to be counted as a formative, summative, or capstone patient contact. So if they're rated perfectly, green, green, green is our rating scale in assessment, treatment, and management, that could be a capstone patient contact because they performed all aspects of that patient encounter with little to no assistance. Now, it won't count as a capstone patient encounter if you have a matching requirement in summative and formative. The educational progression kind of flows from left to right here. So even if you get perfectly rated on your first patient, that's not going to immediately count towards the latest learning phase. We make sure that we satisfy the earlier learning phases first. So just a quick note on how that works. What it does mean is a potential downside that I want to make sure you're aware of. We're very rigid in that every patient entered into EMCE has to be rated on those three categories. That's at least right now, a non-negotiable aspect of using the platform is if you're tracking patient encounters, the evaluator has to rate the student on those three areas. So any other questions about requirements? Again, when I set up this cohort, I set its requirement set, and then any students that join that cohort are automatically given those requirements. They can see right on at a glance what they're expected to do, and they can enter skills and patient context towards those requirements with no other setup necessary. This cohort is done. It's ready to go. Any questions on that? Okay. So the next thing I'm going to do here, I'm signed in as my director profile at Vermont EMS Training Demo. I'm going to go over the process for signing up as a student. So I have my account here, and I'm just going to add a profile to this account. So you could do this too if you want a student version of the app on your account. You can do so. You just add a student profile. So then also store this away. This is the exact sign up process that your students will go through. Download the app, sign up for the account, say they're a student, and they're going to search for your organization. So Vermont EMS Training Demo is my organization here. And then I just self-select into a cohort, and we only have one cohort in this organization, the Demo EMT cohort. And when I hit save, it's going to create a profile for me. I am now a student in that cohort. And as soon as you set up your EMCE account and cohorts, you are ready to go. There is no other setup that's necessary. This is it. So what you'll also notice is that I joined as a student and didn't have to pay. I just get access and can start tracking stuff in the lab right away. We don't actually need your students to pay or need you to pay for your students until they're ready to either access your institutional schedule or until you want them to show up in your bulk reports. So the tool is available to use for free if you don't need access to scheduling and reports, but spoiler alert, you need access to reports, right? So it's even if you don't use scheduling, you're going to want to get the data out of the system in some way. So what we did it that way so that you can reduce barriers on the front end, get students in, get them tracking stuff. If they end up dropping out before they need to access your schedule, you didn't have to pay for them. It's not really that big of a deal. But it also removes the barrier where like, oh, I can't get in, I can't pay right now. It's not a big deal. Let's get you in. Let's get you documenting what you're doing, and we'll worry about the payment when we need to worry about the payment. Okay, so I'm a student. I'm on my student dashboard, and it looks a little bit like the instructor dashboard with a couple key differences. So this little message here that's not super readable on red on black, but this is just the indicator that I have not purchased the EMCE Pro upgrade. I cannot access scheduling. I do not show up in reports. I have my own evals to-do list. I can track my scheduled hours here. It's just giving me the same message, isn't it? Okay. And then also want to call out that you can see your requirements. So I can expand this. I've not completed any of my program's requirements yet, but I can expand and take a look at real time what I'm expected to do here. So I see my airway skills here. Let's just BVM. I need 2 peer checkoffs on my BVM, and I need 1 instructor checkoff here. So I can just immediately start practicing. your students are probably going to be using their mobile phones for this. So what EMCE looks like on a mobile phone is very similar. It's just a little bit different. I wonder if this will work. I just did the window that I'm sharing collapse to you guys? So you see the plus button at the bottom of the screen now, right? Is that what you're seeing on your screen?
Yes.
So I think it's pretty hard to miss. That's their main action in the EMCE app, is just adding stuff to track. So the plus button is right in the middle of the screen. I want more real estate for this demo, so I'll just go back to the wider version where the plus button's over here. But just to call out that what they see is, you know, I'm adding something. That's my job, is to add what I'm doing, and I'm going to track it. So as a student, I'm going to hit the plus button and I'm going to add a new skill. So the first thing that you do when adding either a skill or patient or shift into EMCE, you need to pick your evaluator. So as my student, I'm going to click pick people, and then I'll choose from the evaluator list that's going to be populated by your program's faculty or your students too. Students can evaluate each other, obviously. And the only other person in my organization is the director version of myself. So I'm going to choose my director. They're my evaluator. We assume that this the entry of this skill is happening at the time that it was done. So you could backdate this, or I guess you could actually future date it too. But we default to right now, assuming that this thing is taking place live when it happened. And you don't need the pro tips. I'm the pro tips today. Okay, so I've got an evaluator. Now I need a skill. What skill are we working on? I choose the skill dropdown, and this list of skills here is already filtered down to the list of skills that I have requirements for in my cohort that I am a part of. So we have a fuller list of skills than what's here, and they're hidden. So I can hit the show all skills button, and then I see that I've got a lot more options to choose. But the first thing I see when I add a new skill is just the ones that I have requirements for in my program. You can customize the list of skills, by the way, too. What we saw was requirement customization, but you have a separate area in settings where you choose EMTs can see this list of skills, paramedics can see this list of skills, advanced can see this list of skills, etc. You have a lot of customization, is my point. Now, I'm going to pick BVM. We're just going to work on BVM here. So I'll choose that. This little PDF icon indicates that we have a full step-by-step skill sheet in the system for BVM. The ones that don't have it, we don't have a skill sheet for. So you're just tracking it was a successful attempt at this skill or it was an unsuccessful attempt at this skill. You can't do a full step-by-step skill sheet. So I'll choose one that has one. But the first thing I'm going to do is just submit it. I'm not going to fill out the full step-by-step skill sheet. I chose my evaluator. I chose my skill. We default to a successful attempt. I hit save. I hit submit for verification, and that's going to be sent over to the person who I marked as my evaluator. Presumably, my director has the app maybe on their phone. They will get a push notification saying you've been selected as the evaluator for an eval. Go here to approve it, and it's not going to count until they act on that evaluation. So that's it. It's not counting towards this requirement yet. You see, I didn't satisfy anything here. I've just submitted the fact that I completed a BVM and you watched me do it to my instructor. I'm going to do another one quick just to show off that when I choose to add a skill eval, we're going to remember the last picked evaluator and we remember the last picked skill. So if you're practicing the same thing over and over again, it's not a huge lift to be adding a bunch of things. You just, we remember the last picked one. On this attempt, I'll do the full step-by-step skill sheet here. So I click the skill steps button and it launches the skill sheet. This one we did get from the NREMT. So we have a reference. Every skill sheet in here has one. So I'm going to do the step-by-step version of this skill sheet. So we'll start the stopwatch here. We'll just go down the list. Okay, this student did not open the airway properly, etc. Critical criteria will automatically result in a failure. And then when I'm done, I stop the stopwatch and I go back. It did not capture that for some reason. What did I hit wrong? Okay, there we go. Okay, so critical criteria was selected, so we're marked as a failure. I can override this, but we'll maintain the fact that the critical criteria was failed. And here is now another attempt at BVM that's going to count the exact same as that first quick thumbs up BVM. We just have more information about this attempt, right? We know that they failed that particular step. We know that it took them 12 seconds. Doesn't count any differently because they did the skill sheet, but we do have more information about this attempt. So when I hit save and submit for verification, I'll note again, nothing counted here. Excuse me. So I'll switch back over to my director profile where I can see clearly at a glance, oh, look, I've got 2 evals to do. And a student has marked me as the evaluator for 2 of these skills. So I can review them here and I can act on them here. Whoops. But what I'm going to do is actually go to my evaluations list where I can bulk act on evals. So if you're in the lab and you have a bunch of students submitting stuff to you, you can come in here afterwards and review the performance here, review this one too, just to quickly call out the difference here. This one was just the quick thumbs up BVM, no information other than the fact that once it's approved, it will satisfy a formative requirement. Then the other one, I have the step-by-step information here. I can view the filled out skill sheet here. And when I bulk approve them, before I bulk approve, I will show in the upper right-hand corner is where I would either approve, reject back to the student with a message, edit it, or totally delete it. What are you talking about? This never happened, you liar. But instead of doing any of those, I'm going to bulk act on them where I can select them here or select all, excuse me, and then hit the approve button, quickly review what all I'm bulk approving. When I hit approve, it will approve all of the evals that I've selected. And then in my done tab, I can now see that there are 2 here that are done. I can see they are satisfying the formative bulk, the formative requirement here. Okay, that's all good. So the student, Mike, should now have 2 instructor evaluated BVMs completed. So let's check on that. As an instructor, I can go to my dashboard. I can go to my student menu here and select a student, and it's going to load their requirements widget. It's the same view that the student would have on their app. You'll see it here. So it looks like I've made a little bit of progress towards my instructor evaluated goals. Let's take a look. Oh, look, I've got 2 BVMs successful out of my requirement of 1. They're both here in the instructor evaluated column. I can actually click on that number and it'll tell me why that requirement is satisfied. Oh, it looks like it was the lab skills that we did on Monday, June 3rd. Can't believe it's June still. And then I can click on those and drill in and get more information about those here. So regardless of what area of the app you are in, you should be able to kind of drill down and get the information you're looking for in a lot of different ways.
Hey, Mike, a question. So, say, like, is there a way to know? So, people should hypothetically be documenting failed attempts as well as successful attempts, but we want to make sure that they get a certain number of successful attempts.
Yes.
Is there a way to, like, be able to just quickly see that?
These are all for an attempt to satisfy a requirement, it must be successful. You can enter failed attempts, but anything that's showing up on the requirements here is going to be necessarily a successful attempt. I'll show you where you can see where and how you can see the failed attempts in just 1 second here. It's a great question though. To get there, what I'm going to do is, as an instructor now, I'm going to actually enter an evaluation. What we saw was the student version of entering that and then the instructor approving it. As an instructor, here I am on the dashboard. I could go to this plus button and do the same thing a student did and select the student, but I've already selected the student here on the dashboard. And I'm looking at the student's skills, and I know that they need to complete another BVM. They don't, but just follow along. And I can just click on the name of the skill, and it will launch a new evaluation form with that skill already pre-selected, with the student that I'm looking at already pre-selected. And all I need to do is hit save and complete, and it will satisfy that requirement. See, there's now 3 out of 1. It looks like that actually selected the neonate version. So you might want to be careful. If there's more than one requirement, more than one skill that can satisfy a requirement, it's probably just selecting the first one. So you'll want to look at that. BVM is a poor example because there are, you saw the 5 different skills that can satisfy the BVM requirement. But let me do this again. I'm going to do one more BVM. This one I will fail, so you can see what that looks like. And I'll submit that. And this skill now, there's still only 3. I have 4 attempts. So if I go to the evaluation screen, I see the 3 successes and the 1 failure, right? But it's still documented, it's still there. The only place you see it in terms of requirements is if you're looking at success rates. There's a little button up here that'll flip over to success rate mode, and then I can see my 4 attempts sequentially, successful attempt, successful attempt, successful attempt, failed attempt. So you can track their progress and look at their X out of the last Y to make sure they were successful at something. In FISDAP, this is called Eureka Graph. They have trademarked the concept of Eureka Graph, so we call them competency analysis. So it's the same thing. You're just tracking progress of a skill via failed and successful attempts over time. And you can see their last X attempt here in the competency analysis. So did that answer your question, Courtney, regarding failures?
It did, yeah.
Okay, wonderful.
Thank you.
So just want to underscore, we're pretty much through skill evaluation. I just want to make sure that's clear. It can be done from either direction. The student can enter an evaluation where they say an instructor evaluated them. If they do so, the instructor has to approve it. If the instructor evaluates a student and says that I was the evaluator of this skill, there's no additional approval necessary. They just enter the skill and it will count towards that requirement. I'll do it again for CPAP, for example. So I click on CPAP here. I could do the full step-by-step skill sheet or not. When I hit save and complete, you're going to see that that CPAP requirement is now satisfied. I've got a digital record of that attempt happening, when it happened, who was involved in that attempt, and we record it and show progress in real time. I'm hit with a sense of dread at how fast I've been talking, so I'm going to take a quick second and pause for any questions relating to individual skill entry, just practicing skills in the lab. Any questions from anyone out there? Okay, definitely feels like a Monday morning for what it's worth. We're gonna kind of go chronologically through the program now. The next thing I'm going to do after some skill practice is kind of put that together in the context of a simulated patient encounter. So instead of, when I go to the plus button here, instead of choosing a skill eval, we're going to do a simulation this time. And we have two different interfaces. I mentioned both of them at the beginning of the call here, but we have just, I'm entering one patient, here I go, or the sim session is if I have a scenario unfolding in front of me, I've got multiple people evaluating one patient care scenario, that's a sim session. We'll get there, but we're going to show the solo sim patient eval form first. And keep in mind here, after I pick my evaluator as my director, that this is largely the same exact form that a student is going to be filling out about a patient in the field as well. So some of the stuff is probably overkill for a simulated patient, but this is just our PCR that a student would fill out when they're entering a patient contact. So at a glance, we've got two different sections here on the form, the assessment and the treatment of the patient. And underneath the assessment, the student must fill out the interview so that we can get the patient's age and complaint. And they must fill out skills if they did any psychomotor skills on this patient contact. We call those out in red here because they're required to give credit towards your program's requirements. If I click on an interview here, it's just a form where I'm filling out the patient that I've seen. We'll do an adult. And then again, the minimum set is just the simulation topics here. So we'll do a cardiac arrest. We'll get serious right away in the morning here. Okay, so you can have one or many skills here. Complaints here. So I've selected cardiac arrest and chest pain. And then the minimum set that I must fill out here is at least the interview and skills. I can add one skill here. Should be pretty familiar now. It's just a skill drop down, but I'm not going to do that. I'm going to add multiple, and I can just go down the list here and say successful, 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 failure, failure, successful. I'm not even looking at what I'm clicking on, so this is not going to make a lot of sense. But you see, you can quickly add a bunch of bulk skills that are done as a part of the simulated patient encounter. Is it of interest to see the rest of the EPCR at this time? It's not super germane for a simulated patient, but I can walk through the rest of the fields that are here on the EPCR if that's useful. Just a quick yay or nay. Should I skip ahead or go through the EPCR?
I think for the EMT student, you don't have to, but thank you.
Yeah. One thing I will say, just I'm not going to go into details. I will save the time here, but while it is a NEMSIS compatible EPCR charting system, we sprinkled in a little educational flavor in there as well. So there's a couple things where not only are they entering data, but they're getting a little bit of education back. we calculate mean arterial pressure when they put in a blood pressure, for example. We'll calculate the GCS for them when they fill out the individual parts of a Glasgow Coma score. When they put in multiple vital sets, and there's a change between those two vital sets, we'll call that out so they understand the impact of their interventions. Okay, the intervention that you did made the blood pressure decrease by X, right? We'll show that in the interface here. So there's a couple different things that we've done to make this so it's not just data entry, but also an educational tool as well. So, okay, so I've got my cardiac arrest chest pain patient with all of these skills that I've done. And I can do a narrative here. I can add comments or attachment to supplemental documentation as well. But I'm going to be done with just this one sim patient. I'm going to hit save. And again, because I marked my instructor as the evaluator here, it's got to be submitted to them first, and it's not going to count until it is. So I've now completed that, my side of the documentation there. When I switch back over to my director profile, bet you can't guess what we're going to see on the dashboard. Oh, look, a student's marked me as the evaluator for a sim patient. Okay, what are the details of this sim patient? It was a cardiac arrest chest pain on June 3rd at 8:45, 7:40 or 9:45, sorry, in the morning. Okay, this looks good. I'm going to go ahead and approve it. Now, for any of you who are paying extremely close attention, I've said this a couple times, every single patient entered into EMCE needs to be evaluated on assessment, treatment, and management. So I'm going to be given a little error here that says, hey, you got to rate this student. So how did this student do on their assessment of the patient? And again, this isn't a super subjective rating scale. It's, did they perform it successfully? Did they attempt it? Did they perform it successfully? Did they need some help? Or did they do it with little to no assistance? So again, based on how I score the patient on these the student on these criteria, we'll be able to count this as either a formative, summative, or capstone patient contact. So I'm going to say they needed a little bit of help with the assessment. Okay. Then I can provide a comment about the assessment. This is really more for the preceptor in the field where they can provide this comment, and it will be invisible to the student. It's really for your program faculty to see. The preceptor can optionally make it visible to the student, but by default, their commentary is going to be hidden from the student and only shown to you as faculty. So there's my assessment score. The second score is under treatment. So how did the student do on their treatment of the patient? Again, same rating scale. They needed a little bit of help. Finally, the management section is invisible to the student when they're entering the patient contact, but there for the evaluator to give one final score on the overall management of the patient encounter. How did they do in managing the scene? How did they do on their team leadership? How did they do with their affect? This is just one final score here for that. We'll say that they also did that with some assistance. And when I hit save here, I complete it, and then that student now has will be getting credit for this patient encounter. So here, this one's approved. It's all done. It's made it through the workflow. Here's my 3 scores and my comment. Then this eval does not match any requirements. Oh, I have to actually load the widget here first. So I want to check to make sure and see if oh, you know what? It didn't meet any requirements because I only have one patient requirement in my EMT skill set. We're not looking for any particular simulated patient requirements. The only patient requirement I have is my summative total team lead, or excuse me, not team lead, excuse me, my total summative patients. So that that patient did not actually meet any patient requirements, but I would be surprised if it didn't meet any skill requirements. Yeah, I did an FBAO removal. I did simple face mask, oxygen. Yeah, so you'll see right away it's met all of those requirements that I did. So I did CPR on this patient. Oh yeah, it was the sim patient that I did. I did pediatric CPR on this adult cardiac arrest patient. We're not enforcing accuracy, obviously, in that respect, but there you go. So that is an individual sim patient. It's again pretty similar. You're just entering what you did. We count it towards your requirements appropriately. Okay. Next up would be the sim session to show the evaluation of multiple students participating at once. Unfortunately, we don't have multiple students or multiple people in this cohort. We just have one. So I'm going to go ahead and select that cohort. We'll do a geriatric trauma patient. I'm going to select one of my multiple participants here. I have Mike Main here. If I had other students, I could select them here, but I can't select the same student twice. It'll yell at me for doing that. So imagine you have a full cohort of students participating in this scenario. You could have participant number 1, 2, you can add more. So you've got 3, 4, 5, you can have up to 20 students participate in one scenario. Okay, I'm going to delete the participants that I don't count. Now, if anybody else was also in my program right now, they would go to the sim session screen and see that there is a geriatric trauma scenario in progress, and they can join it, and they will pull up this screen on their device, and then they can evaluate. You can delegate out evaluation responsibility and say, you know, Billy, you watch Timmy. Frank, you watch Susan. Replace those with Gen Z names, and you get the idea. You can delegate out responsibility to what's happening in front of you in the lab. So I could just kick off this scenario and start, but I do also want to show quickly our generative AI option here. So I've given it geriatric trauma. I could generate scenario, and we give a little disclaimer saying humans didn't touch this. It could be wrong. I will say it's not often been wrong. I mean, if you're familiar with AI at all, it's generally pretty accurate, but you do need to kind of keep an eye on it to make sure that it's not making shit up. But for the most part, it's pretty good. So you'll see when this finishes, it does take a second. It'll give me a text version of the scenario. So here it is. Talks about learning objectives here, the equipment that you'll need for this particular scenario, setup instructions, dispatch information, etc. If there was, there's usually a section for moulage as well. So it doesn't look. Oh, there is. Yeah, it's this. Closed head injury with a laceration on the scalp, a fractured hip. No kidding. Okay. Yeah, scene survey assessment. This is just information that they would glean from the patient interview, et cetera. So you see it I feel like it's pretty medically accurate and at least useful for practice. It's not going to be wildly wrong, and the students are going to be learning things that are nonsense here. So you can edit this if you want to change any portion of it. You can also just select everything and copy and paste this into a Word doc. So you've got this scenario for use for later if you want to. Saving a scenario in the platform is a feature that will come sometime soon, because we're going to, again, have to start charging for this because Google's going to start charging us. But right now it's free in the platform. So at any rate, I've got a scenario that I'm going to be kicking off here. Mike is my my subject here. We're going to start the stopwatch and go. So there are 3 different ways to add skills to participants in a sim session. And again, you can do this from a separate device too. Multiple devices can be looking at the same thing at one time. So if someone else was in here, they could go and add a skill for Mike. And again, we're just going to hammer the BVM today. We did a BVM here. My initials are here, but if that was entered by someone else that's observing this scenario as well, you'd see their initials here. You just go down the list. So that's adding 1. They can also add multiple, just like they did on the main patient form. Or this really works well on a tablet and with multiple participants, but you can drag and drop onto the participant as well too. So let's say they did a C-collar here. I can drag that over to the student that participated on it, and that was a successful C-collar, right? So you can just drag and drop from our list of suggested skills that are generated from the topic that was chosen. Right, so I hope this makes sense and how it's different from just an individual sim entry. It's a little bit underwhelming because I do only have 1 participant here, but if I had multiple, what you're doing is creating sim patients for each of those students behind the scenes here. So I'll hit stop. My sim's over. I grade the student on their assessment, treatment, and management of this patient encounter. I hit save, complete. And then if anyone else was viewing this session at the same time as me, this would kick them out of that session. They can't view it anymore, and we're done. We do have a special debrief view for the sim session that we don't have on an individual sim patient. So if you are done with a scenario in class and want to review it and debrief with your students, we have this view here that'll show a timeline of everything that happened in this sim. And you can bring this up and say, okay, 36 seconds again. Looks like Mike attempted to do a CPAP and failed it. What went wrong, class? What could he have done better, etc. Here's your debrief view. You can also access the text scenario here as well from retroactively. But the end result, again, if I go to my evaluations and done, I can see the 2 sim patients here. I did this one as a just individually. This one was a part of the sim session. They're going to count the exact same. It doesn't matter if you enter them as a part of individual sim eval or a full sim session. They count the same. What you would have seen if I had multiple participants is multiple sim patients here. So, all right, it's time for me to take a breath again. Any questions?
Mike, this
Yes.
is purely a nerd question.
Yes, sir.
Is this built on WordPress? It has the same
WordPress?
format.
Did you say WordPress?
Yeah.
No. It is we use a framework called Google Flutter, which allows us to build one app and then deploy it down to Android, iOS, Mac OS, the web, all in one go. So that's why you get the same version of the app, whether you're in no matter what version you're using. I do mostly recommend using the native mobile apps. That's really the best experience to be on an iPhone, iPad, Android phone, Android tablet. But again, please do feel free to use the web version as well. It just can be a little bit clunky because the web is difficult to develop for when you're building an app. So yeah, not WordPress. Any other questions about lab? I mean, I feel like we've pretty much taken you through lab, individual skill evaluation, simulated patient evaluation, bulk sim patient evaluation. The next step, I think, would be to send students out to clinicals, in which case we have a fully featured scheduler. I'm pretty much run out of time at this point. But the scheduling system is extremely flexible. You can enter all of the opportunities that your students can sign up for into the system and just unleash it so the students can sign up for what works for their schedule. You can input the schedule and assign students so that they're not choosing, or you can just set it up so students can create their own events that you have no part in that, and then you can just review them after they've created them, etc. Does that make sense? The other portion that I'll show here, and if you just give me 1 second here, I actually do have to activate the student account that I've just created. I could have done that while you were asking the question so as to multitask, but we'll just sing the Jeopardy theme song in your heads for a second, if you don't mind. Okay. What I'm doing here is in order to see reports, I need to have the student active. So here's the shop where you would activate a student accounts, or you can buy them in bulk here on the shop. Let's see, I want to buy, let's see, 15 EMTs, $375, and just check out with a credit card here. I could also invoice you if you're working with a college that has a arduous purchasing process. Who doesn't? We can accommodate that. We'll just invoice you, etc. Or students, when they create their accounts on their shop, they'll just be able to pay for their own code if they purchase directly. So I am going to issue a code here. We're going to go 102. Thank you for bearing with me. So we should see a code pop up here under EMT. If I did that right, yes, we did. Okay, perfect. So if you have a excess of codes that you've purchased from us or gotten via invoice, you'll see the codes here. I'm going to tap on Mike here, and I'm going to assign an access code to him. So now he can access the schedule, and he will show up in reports. I'm going to intentionally leave the scheduling behind. We can talk more about scheduling at a later time, but it is important for you to be able to see the reports as well. So now I can see Mike in reports since I've activated him. And so here's our suite of reports here. So we have the skills and patient evaluations progress, 100% of the data that you need for the paramedic SMC, and probably well, no, not probably, for the EMT SMC as well, is going to show up in one of these two reports. This summary tracking report is the exact format that COA uses and that they want to see for accredited paramedic programs. It just spits it out right into their spreadsheet. So you can see the summary tracking sheet. Each student is listed individually, and their progress against the competencies is going to be listed there. That has to be downloaded from our platform into Excel, but you just click it, one button, and you'll get that spreadsheet generated. If you're looking at progress in real time, you're going to use one of these two reports here. skills evaluations progress. I'm going to go ahead and select my student here, and he'll come up here. I can see at a glance his progress. I'd have other students if I had them in the column next to them here. And I can do the same thing I did on the dashboard and just drill down and see, okay, here's the skills that were completed, etc. You can also see success rates from here too. So that, and then by learning phase here too. So I can see my summative skills, and of which I have not completed any. So, and the same thing for patient evaluations. Again, for this cohort, we only just have the one minimum patient requirement, and I have none that satisfy them because I haven't done any live patient encounters yet. Shift attendance is going to be blank here, but you're going to see the students' attended hours next to their scheduled hours. You'll see their clock in and clock out times on every shift they attend. And you can see at a glance, we color code whether they're late or on time as well. So right away, you can see all the students being late a bunch. That's the attendance report. And then finally, we have the data export, which is just a big dump of all of your data. I call it DIY reporting. If you are at all dangerous in Microsoft Excel, you can just dump all of your data out, bring it into Excel, sort, pivot, filter, do whatever you want to do to get your look of the data that you want it to. It's a super powerful tool, but it does require a little bit of expertise on the back end. If you're finding that you do that a lot, like, hey, I really want to be able to look at this in the platform, there's a chance we could build a new report for you. So please let me know if that you're relying on data export all the time. The last couple of points I want to hit on here is there's a lot of customization that can be done in the settings here. It's quite a customizable platform with a couple exceptions. So if there's something that you saw how it works that you want it to work a little bit differently, there's a chance we already have a setting to tweak that. So please let me know, like, we really need it to work like this. I'd love to hear that. Please don't take anything from the demo here like, no, I can't change that. Even the grading rubric, which I've said is hard-coded and essential, we are planning on making that a little more flexible later this summer too. So like if you something that you don't like how this works, I'd love to hear that, just at least to have the feedback. And then there's a chance that we actually do already do it in a way that you matches your program as well. So lots of options and settings. And the last thing, I know I mentioned this before, I take great pride in being available to help you with customer support. So this students and instructors alike from their help menu can access our help documentation, but they can also just type something in here. How do I schedule a shift? And hit send, and that's going to create a ticket in our ticketing system. And I'll get back to that person, whether it's a student or instructor, within 24 business hours. Whew. Couple minutes over. Any questions? Anybody have anything that they'd like to ask before we break?
Thank you for taking the time this morning to go over this with all of us. I think it will be a really good resource for people to make the best choice for their program as to what they need documentation wise.
Courtney, there are a couple folks in Vermont already using our system. Do you remember who that is?
Yeah, it's VEMSA and Bennington Rescue. So Bill Camarda and Mark Considine.
So
and then I
encourage you to reach
Scott.
out to them if you'd like to hear about how it's working or not working, hopefully working for their programs. They're going to be able to give you a better account of its practical usage than the happy path that I just showed you. So
yeah, no, definitely we will use them as a resource as well.
Great. The very, very last thing, I think I've said this 3 times now, so I'm sorry. This is the very last thing that I'll mention is feel free to try it out yourselves. So you can download the app on your phone, or you can go to emce.app on the web and sign up, just like you saw me sign up, right? I created Vermont EMS training demo. You can create your real program. It's free to do that. You'll get created an instructor account. You can set up a cohort and create a demo student profile, or just have your students sign up right away and jump right in. There's no barriers to you using EMCE right now. Feel free to download it and give it a try. Again, you don't have to pay until the individual students that have accounts need to access your schedule or your reports. So you could try it out to evaluate it. And then if you think it's the worst thing that's ever been built, you don't have to use it. Please feel free to try it and then reach out to me if you have any questions.
Great. Do you mind, so would it be okay if I put your email in the kind of mass email that I send out in
Yes.
case anyone wants to contact you? And the one that I've been using to contact you is fine?
Yes, it's
Okay.
fine. I've got too many emails, but there's a lot of, you can get, I'm very easy to get a hold of. So I'm sure you've got the right one there. Yes, please don't hesitate to reach out. Happy to answer any questions. And I just want to say thank you for the time as well, too. I do a lot of one-on-one demos, and usually it's the other person that's driving on the other end. So this is the first time in a while that I've walked through all of this. So thank you for bearing with me. And if you do want to do a full one-on-one demo, I can schedule those as well. So we can definitely do that.
Great.
But I
Good to know.
appreciate the opportunity, Courtney. Thank you so much.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for joining us.
Yep. Have a good rest of your day, guys.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. Thanks for hanging out. We went a little bit over, but I think that that's useful, and I'll send the link out to the YouTube video, of course, for this meeting, but I'm also going to put it under the IC credential on Vector, and label it as EMCE Demo. And then, maybe if people are interested in looking at other ones too, I know Charlene's been using Canvas for a long time. So for the EMT level, that might be worth her coming on and showing what's worked for her, if she's comfortable doing that. Otherwise, if people have used Platinum, I'm open to doing this for all of them because I recognize that each program and each IC does things their way. So yeah, even if you want to do paper. Yeah, Stephen.
You're muted.
Oh, you're muted. Can I unmute you? Oh, and now he's gone.
Oh, bye-bye.
Does anyone have any other questions, comments?
That was incredibly helpful. I've not used any of this stuff yet. So I think it's really, really helpful, Courtney. And maybe you can survey in your email, is there anybody else that's used anything else? Like maybe, because I think Fairfax, Kathy, does she use Canvas? Maybe like they can come on together, and get the different perspectives. Yeah, this was really helpful. Thank you very, very much.
Yeah, I'm
Courtney?
glad it was helpful. It was a lot of information at once.
Right, it was. I've used Platinum, but this is simpler, I must admit. The nice thing about Platinum is and they just haven't gotten there yet, is the ability to create tests. And since we're moving away from that, written tests, and based on the national exams, Platinum is very expensive. This is a lot cheaper. So this was of interest. This is affordable. So looks good.
Great. Great. I don't know if Steven's coming back on, but he can always call me if need be. Next month, the first Monday is July 1st. I plan on having a meeting. I know that's real close to the July 4th holiday. But the reason I'm planning on it is because the month after in August, I will be out on my family vacation that week. So I will not be planning one for August. And I think that will be okay. I'm always available. And we would regroup in September, but I'll aim for the July 1st one, but I totally understand if people don't log on, no big deal. I'll just send out if there's an email with important information or whatever.
That's super helpful.
Thank you, Courtney.
Yeah. Courtney, just having these opportunities and like you're crushing it. Thank you. We appreciate you a lot.
Yeah, you're welcome. No problem.
All
All right.
All right.
Well, go enjoy your day, whatever you may be up to.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thanks, everybody.
Thank you.
Thank
Bye.
you. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you.